Alright guys, Bart with something similarly required here. So a little bit of a screw up. I forgot to start filming this and I had already started to do it. It's a little bit of a challenge and homework for the show. So I've sent these exact same parts to Paul for him to do his own kit bash on a vehicle and see what kind of mashup he comes up with. I know what I had in mind whenever I sent the parts to him, but I didn't tell him what to do with them. So we're going to have a little challenge to see what goes on. So what I've done so far is the parts to the polar bear, this is how I had them. All I did was separated the tracks from the vehicle and took the wheels out, because I want that to sit flat. I am not going to put any type of skis or anything on there. I'm actually going to mount this pistol on the front where the where that mount is right there. These guns I'm going to cut and modify. Those are going to get stuck on the side there to hopefully cover up that slot that's in there. And then this vehicle I've taken apart. I'll reuse the steering wheel on here somehow at some point. This part I don't need. I've already cut the back end of this off, and these pieces here, that's going to mount onto there eventually as the engine cover. Once I do some more modifications to that, then I'm going to cut off this gas tank area, just have this front piece, and that's going to mount on here somehow. And this may just be an open cockpit area. I'm not exactly sure yet. I got some more tinkering to do with all that. Sorry for the bad camera work. I am in my alternate workshop in one of the spare bedrooms in the house because it's a lot warmer here. It's cold as hell down in the workshop, and the space heater only does so much. It looks like my battery's going to die, so I'm going to cut some more pieces, do some more test fittings, and then I'll show you what I did. Thanks. Alright guys, fresh battery, a little bit of an update here. So what I've done is trimmed this down. If you can kind of see it here. I've done a lot of cutting, filing, to get it to where I want it to sit flush on the back here as an engine cover. Oops, sorry. So that fits down on top of the motor, but as you can see there's a big gap right there, and I could get some styrene sheet to cover all this in. A whole lot of pain in the ass work for a cover that I will probably never ever take off again. So what my idea is if I take this seat out and put that in there, I can manipulate that in a way where I don't have to do a lot of fixing. I can just put a little bit of filler in there, get that to work. I'll glue this in place. Sorry, I'm working one-handed here. Fill all this in. I'll probably put a backer in here. Fill the front full of putty, sand it flat, and just fill the sides in a little bit, contour them off somehow, whatever. I'm also thinking about taking the foot pegs off because I never really used them, don't see the point of them. People hanging on the back of that just look kind of weird. So that's the game plan for that. But it hits the motor. So what I'm going to do is cut the motor off flush with the back of the seat, which should take me up to this point on the polar bear or battle bear. So I'll have the seat in there, motor will be gone, motor will go into my fodder bin, I'll use that for something else, and then that will marry up to the back of that, which will sit flat in there, and that will be my engine cover. Once I get all that glued in place and puttied up. So now I just have to take this front piece, cut that up, figure out how I want to attach that to the front of this. Get that little mash up going. And then see how much of the seat will be exposed. I'm thinking it'll cover about this part here. Attach that steering wheel thing here somehow. I got to put a guy in there to see how far his arms reach out. Things like that. It's probably going to be funky looking when it's done. But it's just a little vehicle to challenge myself and Paul. So once I get this front cut up a little bit and fit it up, I'll get this cut off so we can see how everything goes together, and then we'll be back. Alright guys, so here's what we got going on. So you can see I got a modern figure in here as a stand-in. It's going to be pretty much an open cockpit kind of thing. That riser right there, I'm going to attach that steering wheel to. Then I've trimmed down this to length and width, and that'll get glued in there. And then on the sides here, on up to about here or so, I'll fill that in with a sheet of styrene. The sides here will be filled in with a sheet, and also there where the gas tank is will be filled in. I trimmed this down a little bit more. I wanted it to sit flatter on here. Now it does stick out on the sides a little bit, but I'll just put a little bit of filler in here, smooth all that out. So it's basically about what you're looking at there. Tank treads will be underneath it. I'm hoping it'll balance itself out. If not, inside the treads I could put a little bit of weight in the back. Just put some nuts and bolts or something back in there, because I can separate this, take it apart. It is glued right here, but I was able to snap it apart fairly easily to get that wheel out. So I can put some weight in the back of it that'll hold it up, and the figure's in it so it doesn't lean forward, because there's no skis on the front. But we'll see once I get everything assembled and have a figure in it how that goes. The sides, like I said, are going to have those guns on it. The black gun is going to go in there. Those will be just glued in place, fixed on permanently. They won't be movable, which isn't going to be a big deal, because this is just going to be a display piece when I'm done. So now my next step is I'm probably going to strip the stickers off and start working on the guns, get them to where I want them to fit. And then once I have that done, I'll probably start gluing everything in place. And once that's set, then I can start cutting my styrene, because then I'll know where this is going to sit and know where to take my measurements from on the styrene. So see you in a minute. Alright guys, another quick little update here. So I've got this reassembled here. I'll show you what I'm going to do with the styrene. Oh, I added these little bits. This is where the steering wheel went. Just went to my fodder bin, found something to stick on there as like a gas cap kind of thing, and I found this rod in there. Stick that in that hole, take care of that. I took the windshield off. That'll get glued back on. I took it off because I'm going to paint this and this two different colors. This is going to be green because this is going to be a Pedal Force 2000 vehicle. So this will probably be green, or no, I'm going to do this blue, that'll be blue, this vent and the windshield will be green, and maybe the antenna. The gas tank part will be painted black to match the seat part, and then this clear piece, I don't know if you can really see it, is a window from toy packaging that I've cut out. I'm going to glue it on the inside there and then paint the back side yellow. I'm going to make those into headlights. The guns I cut down, those will get stuck on the sides to cover up those holes, and then like I said, that gun will go in the bottom, and then this will get glued into that spot right there. The back, since there's a little bit of overhang here, I've got two options. I can use my green stuff, which when I mix it together it turns into, if you're familiar with silly putty, it kind of has that consistency to it. More than likely I'm going to use milliput, because that when mixed turns into like a paste, and I can smooth that around and manipulate it a lot easier than the green stuff. Also, I've filled in those holes with tape. Those I'll cover in with the milliput, and I'll sand that flat just to cover up that hole, because I won't be needing that. This hole in here, I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. Probably cover it up with something, some leftover milliput, something like that. But the reason for this update is I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with this sheet of styrene. I believe it's 040, I think it was. I don't know, I got a couple different sheets. So let's see if I can do this one-handed. So what I'm going to do is I want to fill this area right here, so that when you're looking at it you don't see that whole area. So I'll line this up where I want to start it, which will be this corner right here. So I'll line that up there, and then on the underside with a pencil, marker, whatever, I'll score around the edge there, and then I'll cut on the inside of that line, and then I can glue that in there. I'll also do that for the other side. I'll do it for that piece right there on the gas tank, and also for the fenders right there. It doesn't really matter what order you do it in. I'm going to do this piece right here first, and then I'll do this, only because if I do this piece then it'll be down inside there, and then this cut edge right here will be really super thin and a pain to work with. So if I do this whole area on the bottom, it'll be a little bit thicker up front, and then I can just put this piece down to on top of that. I may have to take a little bit of filler, be it milliput or some quick seal I got. It's like a plumber's caulking kind of thing. But either way, I'll try and fill in the gaps as best I can. I'm not trying to make a showpiece out of this. It's just going to be a quick little demonstration piece just to see what Paul's going to do with his if he gets around to doing that. But that's what I'm going to do now, is cut the styrene sheets, get everything glued in place, and then probably just start painting everything once I get that clear piece glued inside. So stay tuned for the next update. Alright guys, quick update. So I did a whitewash on this piece and that piece because I want to even out the color tone. It's got this camouflage on it, and if I just paint over top of it, the top coat of paint may be a different shade in different spots. So to even out the tone, I just gave it a coat of white. This white is going to act like a primer, not only for the paint on top, but for the weathering effect I want to do. So that'll come into key later. This is glued down, so I'll be putting filler around these sides and that gap there and that gap there, those two holes there. It is glued there. I glued this clear piece down. I painted on the back side of it, which this will be covered up. So let's get the light out of there. That'll look like yellow headlights. That light won't be shining through it because there'll be stuff on top of it. So that's about it for now, and I'll give you another update later. Alright, quick little update while I'm waiting for some glue to dry. So you can see I've done some painting here and some gluing. I glued these guns on. That gun's been glued on. These little side skirts are glued on. I'm waiting for the glue to dry. I have to do that piece there. That piece there has been glued on. Everything's been painted. Steering wheel's glued on. Painted all the backside. I got to paint the tail lights. I decided to make tail lights in here to cover those holes. I think I said this was going to be Battle Force 2000. I made a mistake. It's going to be Steel Brigade. So I got the Steel Brigade colors on there. So my next steps are going to be, once this glue finishes drying, I'm going to make these side panels, glue them in there. These gaps need to be filled in. I'll probably just do some more milliput with those, and finish painting some of these areas once all the glue's dried. Snap the tracks on, and that's probably going to be about it. So stay tuned. Alright guys, pretty much done. You can see my stunt double figure in here, how he looks. It's not too bad, but not done with this yet. So I got everything put together here, but it needs to be weathered. This is also part of a weathering project we're going to do for the show. So the technique I was going to do was the salt technique, where you wet down an area of the vehicle, sprinkle a little salt on it, paint over top of it, and then rub the salt off, wash it, and the spots where the salt was, it leaves behind the paint underneath. So I would have put the salt down on top of my primer that's underneath this, sprayed the blue, washed the salt off, and the primer would have been left, so it would look like rock chips, you know, as this thing's going down the road, that kind of thing. To do that, you have to airbrush the paint on. It is way too cold in my workshop to be airbrushing, just to be down there in general, but I can't get the temperature up high enough for the paint to do what the paint's supposed to do. So what I'm going to do is give this thing some battle damage. So I'll go around and nick up the corners, because the corners stick out, so this would have all been bumped on something. Put some damage on the front, maybe part of the windshield or whatever is gunshots and whatnot. Scratch up the sides, anything that protrudes out that could have been hit by branches or rocks kicked up. Bullets grazing down the side of the vehicle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a combination of my Dremel. I can use the Dremel to sand down edges. I can put a cutting wheel on it, put little gouges in the side like a bullet grazed it, so it went in and dipped back out. Files, I can file the edges just to knock down some of the paint that's on there. I can also use heat, apply heat to a corner, and that way I can bend it up, and as it cools down it should stay in that position. I'll have to check that, because this is old plastic and it may just snap. And if it does, I snap it off, and that's just more damage. Also, I will be taking a soldering iron, if I can grab it here. So what I do is I have the pencil tip on my soldering iron, and I heat it up, touch it to the plastic will melt, and it will mushroom out around where you put the tip, so that will look like a bullet had hit it. I've done it on a bunch of other vehicles. I'm not sure if those have been shown. They have not been shown on this channel, I can tell you that. So it's going to be a combination of a couple different things to get those effects done. I am doing this one-handed, so I'm going to apply some of these techniques, show you the finished product, and then if you guys got any questions, you can always just ask. So we'll be back. Alright, little wrap up here. So I've done the battle damage. Try to do a couple different techniques here. So I just had this one on hand, but you can use any kind of sanding bit that you have in your Dremel. I just ran it across the edge here, just to flatten it out a little bit, knock off the paint. I also did that on that edge there, if I can get the glare off it, and on the edge here. I don't know why this is having a hard time focusing, but I left the plastic peeled back, because you know sometimes what happens. Ran it along the edge there, nicked that up. Same thing on the back corners, this edge, and then this side I did the same thing. I ran it down along that edge and on the side of the body here. So this puts I don't know, like a shrapnel damage to it, where this tip being round puts a round gouge in the plastic, looking like a chunk was knocked out. Now all this fuzzy debris hanging off, I could just take my finger and knock that down if I wanted to. I decided to leave it because it looks like ripped metal peeled back. Like I said, this is just a demonstration piece, it's not a show piece, so nothing crazy. So again, on this side, if you look here, try to do kind of like if a bullet had impacted that and just kind of like grazed it. I left the metal hanging off. I may knock all that off and just have it kind of like that. Now what you can't see is the indentation that's in there. It kind of dips in, dips back out. I just happen to have this cutting wheel. You could use a sanding wheel, like a cut-off wheel. This one just happens to have saw teeth on it. But since it's a round edge digging into it, a flat round edge, I guess it depends on how you want to look at it. So as this goes in, it makes a deeper gouge here and a shallower one on the sides, so that way it looks like the bullet went in, grazed it, came back out kind of thing. I could use a real small drill bit, smaller than this one, go in on an angle. That way it looks like the bullet hit and stopped in the metal and is lodged in there. I didn't feel like going down and getting a really small drill bit, but you can get those pretty much anywhere. Harbor Freight's got a really cool set of like these micro drill bits. So then on the front, I did two different things with this soldering iron. So you don't have to heat the tip up much, as it's just plastic. But I took, see if I can zoom in here, I took the tip and just touched it in these spots. I tried and stitch a little wavy line across the front like it was machine gun fire. Small little dabs, look like small arms fire. And then I pierced it a little bit harder here, and that makes it look like larger caliber, like 50 caliber round or so. You can see the different sizes in there, and it really doesn't take much. You just dab it in there, and you can see it kind of peels back the plastic a little bit. And I could also put these in on an angle, and that'll give it more of a splash to one side or another. Put a couple in over here for giggles. Now the only bad part about this is when this bubbles up like that, it's going to be the color of whatever the plastic is. Now this piece happened to be tan plastic, so when it bubbled up, I got tan. Now if I was to go to the side, as you can see here, that's white plastic. So if I put bullet holes in there, it would bubble up and look white. So these wouldn't match. If you really wanted to get crazy technical, you could go back with a really small paintbrush, paint all these bullet holes to match if you wanted to. To me, it doesn't really matter that my bullet holes don't match my gouge holes. Like I said, this is just a quick demonstration piece I put together slash challenge for Paul to see what he comes up with his. So that's pretty much it. Just some ideas, think outside the box. I was going to get the file out, file some of these edges or whatever, but it's really just the same thing as using the Dremel. It's just the Dremel is going to do it a lot more aggressively than if you just take a file. Really all depends on what you have at hand. You could even use a screwdriver, a flathead screwdriver, use the corner of it and just start scratching the side. Like you can see here, I put some scratches in with something similar to that. So just go crazy with it, experiment, see what happens, and post them on the Facebook page. Let us know what you come up with, and as always, if you got any questions, just let me know. Thanks for watching.